Hi everyone, welcome to Innovate Together, the podcast. My name is Professor Matt Freeman. I'm the Centre Director here at FutureSpace, which is UWE's Innovation Centre for High-Tech Businesses. I am co-hostless today, but once again we are based within LaunchSpace, UWE's incubator, also for high-tech businesses. Really pleased to be joined today by three incredible speakers. As always, we're interested in the world of graduate startups, of university scale-ups, and the role of universities in nurturing those tech startups for the future. Today's theme is around marketing, so particularly marketing technology. This is a theme, of course, I think so many of the businesses based here struggle with in terms of how they go about engaging their audiences or their clients or their investors around what is fundamentally new and unknown. So today we'll be joined by three speakers coming at this from a startup perspective, an agency perspective, and also an academic and research perspective, hearing about different approaches to not just marketing, but also the way that technology is transforming the world of marketing for the future. So first of all, we'll just do introductions in terms of our three guests today. So Morgan, over to you.
Hello, my name is Morgan Edmondson and I'm a co-founder at Nesti.
Hello, my name is Vincent. I'm the co-founder of Hot Sauce Creative.
Hello, my name is Bowden-Green. I'm a senior lecturer in marketing, particularly teaching digital marketing next door in Bristol Business School.
Cool. So thanks ever so much, guys, for joining us. First question, I guess, really, which is for all of you. So feel free to just sort of chip in here in terms of your own kind of insights and experiences, really. But just to start with, how do you all go about marketing technology? So particularly the challenge of a new piece of technology, whether it's from academic perspectives, agencies, kind of startup perspectives, how do you go about navigating that particular challenge in terms of your own audiences?
Would you like to go first? I'll take it first. I think technology can actually sometimes be harder to market, because I think what we usually see is reluctancy to change with most businesses. So when we saw the AI jump or the social media jump, we see these natural curves take place. I think it can actually be quite hard for marketing agencies right in the beginning to go, oh, you need this, because they go, well, what's the benefit? I'm already working. So sometimes the fear factor actually takes place at the start of that, unless you need direct research to actually find out the need for that right in the beginning, and that can sometimes help.
Tom, what about yourself?
In sort of academic terms, we talk about a model for understanding how people adopt new technology and tend to refer to something called the technology acceptance model, which basically says that there are two reasons why people have a positive attitude towards new technology. One is that they perceive it as being useful to them in some way, and two, they perceive it as being easy to use. So there's a lot of research showing that whatever technology, whether it's social media, now there's a lot of obviously papers and research around AI, but it's applying the same model to new technology. And I think, Matt, you're familiar with the diffusion of innovations curve as well, this idea that you get early adopters, early majority, etc. And that probably relates to that technology acceptance model, this idea that some people straight away see the benefit and see it as being easy to use and see its benefit. And you can see that with AI. Some people jumped on it straight away, and some people are now beginning to see the benefits, but there'll be some people that don't see the benefits until 10, 20 years' time.
And it's about finding that sort of human element beneath that, isn't it? In terms of really sort of getting to the heart of it a little bit. Morgan, what about yourself? I mean, I guess maybe say a little bit about sort of Nesti as well, as sort of context, I guess, for what you're talking about.
So I think, just to give some context, at Nesti, what we do is we enable personalised video production at scale with AI. So that goes for marketers, salespeople, demand generation, all these kind of people. The way in which we work is we take a small amount of video footage of just the person reading a script directly off a webcam and use that to create what we call an AI replica of that person, so that from a singular script they can create hundreds, if not thousands, of one-to-one videos for marketing and sales campaigns. And I think what was said is really interesting. The way I see it is I think that people don't just buy technology for the novelty or adopt technology for the novelty. I think it always has to come down to the value or the problem that you're solving. So the way we like to look at it in Nesti is always from the perspective of not check out this cool new AI tool, more of this AI tool can help you solve XYZ problem and be X% better in your job or help you deliver X amount more revenue per quarter by doing this thing. So I think you have to look at it in the same way as any other kind of business or technology, right? So software, whatever it may be, it's about solving problems and adding value. That's the way I see it.
when you were doing that though, so when you were having those early conversations with companies, did you feel like they were very open to it? You know, as Tom said, if we look at the natural curve,
Yeah.
did you feel like you were having a lot of the early adopters with that, or did you feel like it was more a resistant in the beginning? Like, how was it for you?
Yeah, there's definitely resistance, because one of the biggest objections we face is that people don't feel comfortable using an AI video representation of themselves. And that comes from a lot of different angles. And the way we normally handle that is obviously one, there's the quality of output, right? So if something's extremely high quality and you feel comfortable with it, then you'll be comfortable to use it. But to answer your question, yeah, there was definitely friction. I think the way we overcome it was kind of by nurturing that person to understand, again, the value or the problem that it solves or what it enables them to do. That's kind of how we approach that.
And how much of that process, in terms of going to potential clients or customers and trying to engage, which I say is quite a weird, daunting thing if you come from a certain perspective, I should say, seeing that kind of AR avatar of yourself could be seen as quite disconcerting. In terms of that sales process, essentially, what did you lean on? Like, was it examples? Was it visuals itself? Like, did you kind of create visuals of them or yourself, or was it more of a sort of language-based kind of approach?
So we've done a variety of things, ranging from giving examples to showing case studies to all kinds of stuff. But what we've found really works is it's very much a psychological thing. So when we're giving people examples in a sales process and they're aware that it's AI, they're deeply concentrated on the idea of scrutinizing it. So what we started to do was maybe give a batch of 10 examples. 5 would be AI, 5 wouldn't be, and say, can you tell a difference between these? And what we started to realize was that people couldn't. And then we found that would help move the needle in a sales process. So that's one way we did it. Another way we did it is, well, actually, to kind of flip it on its head, one thing that didn't work initially was before somebody had bought into kind of the product and the idea, when we were to give them kind of like a clone of themselves to test it out, that didn't work at all. And the reason we find is because it's low commitment, right? And also because there's that psychological component again. It's like, you know, if you have a version of yourself that you're not very committed to, again, you're more likely to scrutinize. So what we found is giving a variety of examples, you know, some AI, some not, and truthfully enabling them to kind of scope that out and evaluate the differences worked really well.
I think they need to go on their own journey, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's because it's really interesting. If I go into a client and say, look, buy into this AI program, it's going to be amazing for you, they're immediately hit with the resistance of like, well, why do I need that? You know, I'm doing this all great things. But if we say, well, like you say, we can solve this problem, we don't even have to tell them we're using AI to solve that problem. But if we can solve this problem half the price or this or that, and we're going to use these systems, they go, yeah, cool. And it's really interesting that there's naturally still this massive element of trust that you still need the human to an element of getting through the door, and then as you said, then they're through that adopter stage and they're more, you know, open to that idea of saying, you know what, I could actually use this and it's going to be good for me.
I think it's also really important to think about the fact that one size doesn't fit all as well, and that every person is going to be different, and the things that trigger them to say yes, I want to use that, or no, I don't want to trigger that, or no, I don't want to use that rather, are going to be different. So, you know, my research over recent years has been about personality traits and how people with different traits respond to technology in different ways. But there are other factors. I mean, demographics would play a role as well, psychographics, you know, all sorts of other things, you know, the stage in their life that they are. That would probably, whatever technology it is we're talking about, that will probably play a role in whether they choose to adopt it or not.
And Tom, just to, I guess, pick up on this just a little bit more, did you want to say a bit more in terms of your research and kind of the data, I guess, kind of behind this, really?
Yeah, well, you might remember that several years ago, Cambridge Analytica hit the headlines because they were seemingly able to target individuals based on their personality traits with adverts. And they supposedly worked with various, I think, Republican candidates in America running campaigns for them and placing adverts. And the science behind that is actually quite interesting, because there is research that says that personality traits, 5-factor personality traits, lead us to different behaviours online, and those can be signalled through social media behaviour, and that clever marketers with the right analysis can identify people according to what they like. For example, I think one of the connections that Sandra Matt's, a well-cited paper that she wrote, claimed was that I think if you like a certain type of Star Trek, I'm not into Star Trek, so I couldn't tell you which particular stream it was, but some Star Trek programs, that's likely to indicate a certain personality trait. And therefore, if you look on Facebook and say you want to target people who like Star Trek, you can assume that those people are likely to have this particular personality trait. So that's been around for a while. And where AI feeds in now is that AI can speed up that process rather than needing to do a huge piece of research to find out all the correlations between things people like and their personality traits. AI can actually use language. There was a paper a couple of years ago which showed that the language people use can actually also hint at their personality traits, and that can be used therefore for marketing. And when you overlay things like demographics and location and other things to that fundamental personality of each person, you can have a pretty good idea about what sort of content they're likely to respond to. Now, whether that's terrifying or whether that's really exciting depends on your perspective. Obviously, I teach marketing and sit in a business school, so I see it as quite an exciting opportunity to target people more efficiently with adverts, but there will be people out there who think the idea of personalised advertising is terrible. And of course also some of the tools, some of the algorithms that are being built are based on the data that's there, and sometimes that can be biased. I know that's something that you've looked at, James, the problems with the data that can be used.
100%. I mean, something that I started looking at when I was starting this PhD was literally this sort of digital resistance of when we've seen technology jumps throughout the years. You know, we saw social media being a massive technology jump. How quick were we as a sort of a human race able to adapt onto that, and how quickly were we able to use that? And something that we have started looking at, Tom and I, is how far could that sort of gap go? And I think there is a worry that the technology, you know, will grow to an exponential rate where certain businesses will not be able to jump onto that. And is there an opportunity then, and a fear for actually replacement altogether, where it just gets too big? And that is something that we've started looking at together, haven't we?
I mean, that's really interesting. And actually, a nice follow-on question around this, I guess, is, you know, something we're interested on this podcast is that difference between kind of early stage businesses, what it takes to grow to certain kind of levels, and then obviously that impacts, in this case, the customers and the clients and the different levels, and that's kind of what you're talking about there in terms of the bigger, are they too late to the party, all of these sorts of things. I mean, from your, whether it's from, you know, research perspectives in terms of Nesti and you know, who you work with at Hot Source as well, when you're marketing in the way that you do and you're talking about marketing, and obviously that feeds into the digital kind of products that you're talking about, is there difference, and if so, how so, in terms of when you're talking to those kind of, let's say, larger corporate players, to those kind of, you know, the people, as you said, don't have a Facebook page, for example? Like, what's the variation there in terms of audience?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because my perspective is that we mostly sell to mid-size to large organisations, so probably anywhere from maybe 50 to 10,000 employees. Partially because the kind of technology that we've built on top of and that we've created is quite expensive to run, as with a lot of AI products out there. But I think the kind of trends we're seeing is that some of them are very conscious on kind of the data side, how you handle data, especially with us because it's all biometric data. One thing that's really interesting we're seeing amongst very large businesses, which I think is going to slow down their rate of adoption, is that they're putting in place what they call AI committees, where they have a board of maybe 5-10 people that will assess different AI products and tools to kind of scope it out against a criteria, which is great on one side because it ensures the safety and the regulation, but on the other side it slows down the procurement. So I mean, we've had to kind of find a sweet spot where we don't get caught into, you know, 2-year sales cycles going through committees, where a company is typically focused on one thing, and that thing being growth, and that's where we kind of slot in really nicely. So that's, for us, tends to be around that mid-sized organisation.
Yeah, interesting.
See, my clients can range anything from sort of a sole trader accountant to an airline, you know, and I think it's so different in the personality they have towards AI in general, and that conversation, in theory, I'm going to call it a sales pitch, has to be changed every single time. Because I've got clients that, you know, I'll start to talk to them about AI and they will be so reluctant to it. And I'm like, but there's no point, as you said, going down the sales journey. I'm never going to be successful. But there are clients that are so forthcoming to be like, okay, tell me, what can we do? How is this going to benefit me? What changes can I implement today? And I think it's really important that there's no, especially in my industry, there's no point wasting time on certain sectors that are not going to adopt right now. However, that does have repercussions, which is 5 years down the line when they do decide to adopt, are they going to be dated? And that is a fear that I think will and could happen.
How about yourself, James? Have you kind of experienced sort of similar ideas in terms of academia?
The funny thing is, I mean, the people that buy products for a business are the same people that buy products for themselves as consumers. You know, we just call them customers when they're in a business setting, and consumers when they're, you know, in the shops. But it's the same people ultimately. I guess the difference is that in a business setting, people tend to be part of we call them a decision-making unit, so a group of people. So you add an additional process. It's not just a case of convincing Tom, it's actually a case of convincing Tom's boss that although Tom likes the product, you know, there might be a new piece of technology I can use in my teaching or research, but I can't buy it myself. I have to then go to my boss to say I want to do it, and there might be several other people involved in the process, like an AI board or committee, like you mentioned earlier, Morgan. So that's the difference. But I suppose at an individual level, you can still profile those people and still understand, you know, who are the people that are more likely to be warm to the idea from the start, and who are the people that you're wasting your time with. So again, that profiling should apply to a business setting just as it would in a consumer setting.
Cool. We'll be right back after this.
In biotech, there is no equivalent of a 3D printer for growing cells.
We give robots the ability to smell, just like humans.
Bad tires that fail cause up to 20% of road accidents.
We know that Bristol is really a city of excellence in terms of tech innovation.
What we're creating is a simple and accessible way to be able to scalably grow cells. And that's obviously important in discovering drugs, but increasingly it's becoming important to be able to diagnose diseases correctly or grow cells for cell therapies and things like that.
So a really good use case for our technology is that we can detect food ripeness. So current technology can only see when it's going off, we can smell it.
The culture of future space is, I think, so important to our ambitions, but really what we want to hear from are people that are looking to perform the most experimental, cutting-edge research and development, something which we can facilitate through the university. One of the things I'm really kind of keen to move us on to talking about is, you know, we're all very, very aware of, you know, some of the kind of myths that are surrounding kind of AI at the moment, and often something, you know, a particular sort of bugbear for me is kind of the natural assumption to turn the conversation to around the dangers and the threats and the jobs and all of these sorts of things that kind of might be happening. When you look at this in a marketing context, I think it becomes really, really interesting, because you could apply the same sort of myths and negative associations of, we don't need marketers anymore, you don't need graphic designers anymore, for example, because we have certain kind of tools that can generate all of this sort of stuff for us. But it'd be really great to sort of hear each of your perspectives on this. And actually, Tom, I'm going to start with you on this one. So in terms of your own teaching, in terms of marketing within the business school, how much is AI starting to either be acknowledged, talked about? So that might be in terms of it's on the curriculum when you're thinking about it in terms of teaching marketing, or maybe the other way around. To what extent are your students kind of recognizing it as an approach to sort of solving the problem of, let's say, no marketing assignments?
So we have a module in AI, so students studying digital marketing can choose an optional module in AI to understand how they can use AI in marketing specifically. But more broadly, I think the key is acknowledging that AI is going to be another tool that universities offer, or that students have access to, whether it's offered or not, to produce their work. So, and we don't shy away from that. You know, we actually, I guess the key is steering students towards an appropriate use of AI in their work and a non-appropriate use. And I can see it kind of on a bit of a, you know, we come on a journey. So when I was at university, originally, nearly 25 years ago now, I had to go to the library, find a journal, look up in the journal to find the paper that I was looking at, and then photocopy it if I was lucky, and take it home with me. Otherwise, just, you know, scribble down what was in it. And then we moved to obviously online journals, and now we've got Google Scholar where we can find stuff in about 5 seconds, really. And AI is just in the latest iteration of that we're now going to have AI tools that are able to actually write your literature review for you, for example, find the literature, find the research for you. So we have to acknowledge that tool's there, but then give students a task that involves building on that, so interpreting it or critiquing it or doing something with it that shows they've understood what's there. So we don't shy away from, it'd be silly just to say, oh, no, students aren't allowed to use AI, because that's not going to happen. You know, students are going to use AI either to do their writing or to do their research. It's just making sure that they are demonstrating their knowledge, their understanding of what they're finding. So we're integrating it as much as possible.
Interesting. James, what about yourself? So from an agency leader perspective, running a digital agency, obviously AI is, as you know, we've spoken about, is shaping all sort of aspects of this. But for you personally, as someone kind of working with clients, running an agency, offering marketing services, how and where is AI maybe beginning to transform some of those practices?
It's everywhere. It really is. I think what we're starting to do at the moment, especially over the last 18 months, is ride this lovely wave of AI, which is that companies, individuals are trying it out and see if it works for them or if it doesn't work for them. But we're using it at every angle we can. Research, analysis, processing, looking at flaws within data, we're looking at everywhere. And I think to say that, you know, agencies that are not using it, they're going to be eventually outdated. It's 100% going to happen. And it is, you know, we're using it all the time for our clients. You know, even if it's a starting point of saying we have an idea, elaborate. But we have to remember, it's exactly what Tom's just said, AI is a tool. Just like a social media scheduling tool, just like another piece of software, it is a tool. It is not the be all and end all. Not right now anyway. You know, at this moment in time, we can use AI as a support mechanism, but unless you feed it with the right data, the right information, the right prompts, you're not going to get a great answer. You know, I had a client recently who I was actually working with, and they said, oh, we use ChatGPT to create a load of social media posts. I said, well, what did you ask it to? And they said, oh, we asked it, we're a wireless company, we said create 7 social media posts. There's no information. You know, it's such a broad answer to that, but you have to be detailed with it. So it's a powerful tool that we're using all the time, but it's not the answer to everything, and it's still flawed. You know, we're still in such an early stage of adoption with this, and I think most companies are, which is why we're seeing mistakes.
Morgan, I'm really keen to get your thoughts on this. As someone that's kind of almost, you know, in terms of your product, I mean, this is next generation. So this is kind of I see it as absolutely kind of the future of where marketing is going. Obviously, there's all these kind of cultural hurdles that you've got to jump over in terms of getting people on board. But in terms of the fact that your product is, of course, is AI generated, but there's a whole team of you around this. How would you kind of respond to sort of James's position in terms of, yes, this is AI kind of leading marketing, but actually how and where are people still crucial to this?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with what's been said. I think the role of marketers, salespeople, is moreover shifting than being replaced, and it's shifting in a way whereby they have to better understand how they can use these tools to deliver on the objectives or to whatever it may be. So what we're seeing is that what our product does ultimately is, if you're a sales or a marketing person that already uses video as a means to reach your customers, to do 100 videos, it might take you half a day, right? Accounting for mistakes, accounting for errors. Whereas to do that with us, it would take 5 seconds. So in reality, that salesperson's still there, they're still equipped, but they're doing that in a more efficient way and then reallocating their time to actually closing these customers, focusing on these deals and all these other things surrounding the business. So I think the best way to look at it is more of a reallocation of time and focus, and kind of an upskilling that's required to be able to be the person controlling these AI models. Because I mean, I completely agree with what James said. If you just go on ChatGPT and throw it some data, most of the time the output's pretty terrible. It's all about the data you give it, or the information you give it, the context, and at the end of the day, that's always going to require a human, which I think is very fascinating. And we're seeing this with a lot of our customers, right? They still have to control the system, they still have to regulate it, they have to provide the information. But what we're empowering them to do is reallocate that time and focus on the bottom line. Really.
Could I ask a question, Morgan, about ethics? And what, you know, in my own time, I'm really into electronic music and producing electronic music and listening to electronic music. The idea that I would log on to Spotify or Apple Music and listen to loads of music which is actually produced by a computer, I don't really like that idea. I'd much prefer to think there's a producer somewhere, even if they're in their bedroom somewhere, that's made this music. So, where do you think the boundary might be between what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and you know, is there a case for labelling certain things as being produced by AI? But you know, is that ever something that you would consider doing?
Yeah, completely. So we have, there's one customer we have in particular. They're quite a large organisation, and the way they use it is they've got pretty much a clone of their CEO, because their CEO really tends to connect with potential customers, and he's quite a thought leader in their space. And they use his likeness to send out video messages, but at the start of every video message they say, this is the AI version of XYZ. And they still get equally as sufficient results. And the reason being, I think, this goes on an even more deeper psychological level, is that it's a lot easier and a lot more memorable to consume video-based content than it is to consume a written email, you should probably get hundreds of them a day.
Yeah.
So whether it's AI or not, there's still a benefit there. And I think also with the whole EU AI Act that they're looking at implementing, I think there definitely will be some kind of precaution around having to state that an image or a video or a piece of music is AI generated.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the best way to go, to be honest, because you want that authenticity.
Something that James looked at, you talked about that in your TEDx talk, didn't you, about fraudulent use of people's identity.
100%. We saw this a few years ago, which is really interesting, before the whole AI thing, was that models were basically having to say, especially on print advertisements or digital advertisements, that the image had been altered in some way. So basically, idea that your skin had been, perfected, etc., etc. And what we started to see, especially across Europe, was they had to put this little mark that says this has been edited. And Adobe actually put out a program that said, if you've changed your shape at all, we can know that, and we will state that in our advertisements. Now, it was really interesting when this happened. We thought at this point, okay, well, we're going to be using a lot more realistic images of people and so forth. Not at all. It just skyrocketed even more, and they just stated it, which is why I believe the video is 100% the way forward. We still, on a very deep psychological level, think that that is that person. We still have a connection with them. It's just a digital connection, and I think we'll see a lot more of that.
Thanks so much, guys. A final question that I kind of want us to sort of end about really is in terms of the audience. So we're really focused around startups in terms of Future Space and Launch Space, and nurturing those kind of tech startups to grow. So from your own perspectives, and obviously we've got a real kind of rich array of perspectives here in terms of teaching kind of next generation students, in terms of agencies, in terms of new AI kind of tools. What singular one piece of advice would each of you give to the other tech startups out there in terms of how best to harness AI and new digital technologies in terms of building their business? Maybe James, if we start with you on that one.
I think don't be afraid to use it. I think it's a really important thing. The companies that we speak to sometimes are so reluctant to try this. So don't be afraid to use AI, but do your research. Every day there are new programs coming out, catered to different industries, different sectors and different sizes. So do your research and find out what's going to work for you. I think that would be my best advice.
Yeah, I mean, mine would be if you were a startup founder out there doing something similar, I think building AI into kind of the baseline. If you're a software company, for example, building AI into your software, your platform, or whatever it may be, is becoming somewhat a requirement for a lot of buyers out there. People are expecting it nowadays, even if it's something very small. Even if you're building, like let's say you're a social media scheduler, people are expecting AI to be added in some way or another. So I think really understanding how you can potentially integrate AI into your systems to further solve the problem, to further add value to the end user, is a piece of advice I would give to any other startup founder out there.
I would encourage any business, particularly startups, to engage with universities to look at how the knowledge that's being built at universities can be shared to benefit their business. There's so much research, particularly in AI. There's research around how people respond to AI, how people respond to certain content that's generated by AI, how to use AI, why people adopt AI to use it for marketing or whatever other purposes. There's so much out there, and I know that sometimes you need an academic, whether that's a PhD researcher, whether that's someone with an established research career. Working with these people can really help you to understand how you can apply what's being researched to benefit your business, and there's often funding as well to support that. Coming to somewhere like Future Space or here in Launch Space, there's so many opportunities to work with the people across the campus here, but also in our Bristol region. There are so many people who are researching areas that relate to this that I think can really benefit a business in this area.
Alright guys, that is the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can find us on any major podcasting platform online. If you're currently watching this on YouTube, please remember to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. If you need more information about Future Space or Launch Space, just do a Google search, Future Space Bristol or Launch Space UWE, and I'm sure you'll find us. Looking forward to the next one. See you soon.
Welcome to Launch Space, the place where ideas come to life. We are the university's incubator, nestled in the University Enterprise Zone. Ready to turn your idea into a reality? Whether you're thinking of starting a business or testing a new concept, we're here to help you grow. Join the ranks of over 200 startups we've supported, helping them raise over 150 million. So, what are you waiting for? See you soon.